Welcome everybody, this is your host Michael Nijma, and we are back for another episode of the SOS podcast. Can you believe we're already at episode 5 going on strong? And I want to thank you to the listeners, to those who are listening to these events, these stories. I really appreciate taking the time and place to, listening and hearing what we put out. If you can please also go to the sosnorcal.org website and donate to help fund this podcast. That would be great. We have masks, we have shirts, we have cups, and all those proceeds, of course, go back to the unhoused community. And without further ado, my name is Michael Nijma. Today's date is 1/15/21 as I record this podcast, and I'm with my gracious host, John. If you want to say hi, everybody, John.
Hello, hi everybody. Well, glad to be back again for another podcast.
So, we have an agenda today. We want to talk about first the recent news and updates that we have, and me and John actually went to a Motel 6 off 17 and
Camden.
17 in Camden. It's closed off, and it is for currently unhoused people. We've met somebody there, a woman there that lived there, and she's telling us that there are only 9 people living there currently, correct? And that a lot of them moved out to some inland housings. And I thought that was pretty interesting and a pretty cool thing that at least some people that are on house are living somewhere. And it seems like a decent sized motel, and they have their own parking spots, and it's pretty secluded. John, if you want to elaborate a little bit on that too as well.
Yeah, it seemed like a really nice location, and it has a storage place right next door, so I'm sure that could be handy if some of the people had to utilize storage. But then we were surprised to hear that she thought there was only about 8 or 9 people living there.
Mm-hmm.
So then I mentioned this to some of the other people I know in these sort of advocate groups that since I heard that, and then they said, some of them heard that, that for some reason they're planning, some of the city government or county people are like all on the track to end utilizing that hotel for housing this vulnerable community as it has been for. So pretty sorry and kind of upset to hear that they have some idea about stopping utilizing that hotel. Seems like the need is there way more even than before, because all these vulnerable people needing somewhere to be just much and even more now.
Especially with the pandemic.
With the pandemic still going on really strong.
Raging. People think that's because it's 2021 New Year that the pandemic would disappear.
Yeah, right. But not
I wish.
Yeah, sure. It's good we have vaccines being available now, but haven't won the battle, haven't won the war yet, So all these people still need somewhere to be, not to mention the further impact and danger of if evictions start happening again. Then you're going to have a whole another big slice of the population ending up in the homeless position if we don't watch out. I know some groups are working hard to try and fight that possibility. But so then, you go, all this hoopla of trumpeting these housing in these hotels. And then first we're calling it Project Room Key to Home Key. But now the newest wave of it is called Project Room Key. And Project Room Key is supposed to be making a lot of the hotels got bought now.
Well, John, this is kind of foreshadowing another topic we're going to feature on. But for now, there's something else I wanted to kind of bring up, and it's the fairgrounds. We heard some news about that. John, if you want to bring that news about the fairgrounds.
Okay, well, just that there still are 15 of those trailers that were sent down by Newsom in the first place when they sent them all to Happy Hollow. Uh, and then 15 of them got sent right at that, sent over to the fairgrounds. And then there was a big a big media presentation and all that with Newsom and even Cindy Chavez and maybe even,
Jeez.
all these people were there for the big news broadcast. And literally at that motel that we went by yesterday or 2 days ago, that Motel 6. So there's, if you can look it up, there was a big media broadcast and with all those public figures there announcing this thing. Now, doesn't that make sort of a mockery of that, to hear that now behind the scenes they're all just trying to close that motel down and stop using it? That's what we're saying.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so then, if you have Project Home Key now being the next phase, why wouldn't that hotel just start becoming part of that, which is the newest phase of utilizing hotels for permanent use? So that's why we need to figure out who's in charge here once again and get some real questions to be answered.
Definitely. There are a lot of they've been very vague with a lot of stuff they're doing, and they're kind of posting these really great ideas, but I feel like they're not really following through with a lot of them.
Yeah.
Would you agree so, John?
That's what I think too.
Mm-hmm.
So then they'll trumpet up a big thing, but then later you find out they're sort of folding it up with out of the public eye, whittling it all down again. Like they have. Now they're only having basically mostly just one big shelter, South Hall, even though there still is actually a shelter. There is also a shelter at the fairgrounds too. You don't hear much about it, but actually there is a shelter there as well. So I mean, I'm glad that that's still being kept going. Then what other people don't know is there's actually still a bunch of trailers over there that people are being allowed to pay rent to live in on the premises of the fairgrounds. But we hear through the grapevine that some of the management of the fairgrounds is trying to figure out a way to public pressure or something to try and terminate having those people being able to rent to live in the RVs there. RVs. But meanwhile, what was really ironic, I thought, and sounded kind of fake, was when they first put those trailers there and had the big media presentation about it and all that. Then later, all of a sudden, they had the backstory. Well, we actually couldn't figure out any way to hook those trailers up. So now I guess we just won't use any of them. So now they've been sitting there all this time. Meanwhile, they actually had a whole bunch of other trailers that are successfully being lived in, have whatever way they need to be hooked up happening. So
there's a lot of resources. There are a lot of resources that are not being used as well that should be used, which is a good segue to one of the main topics we want to discuss today are some more potential solutions for the unhoused community right now. There's not a lot being done, and we feel, me and John and other members of SOS feel that there should more be done. Especially during this pandemic, the growing numbers of the unhoused community, last time I checked was at 7,800, and which is the biggest in the nation in this area. So yeah, there's a lot of unhoused people, and we need to find a solution now because it's like I said, although there's a vaccine right now, COVID is not going to go away this year. Most likely, we'll get into more normalcy next year. But for now, we need to have a solution because these people that are here, they're especially this harsh winter climate. It's only gonna get colder and colder. They have
Yeah.
nowhere to stay, nowhere to go, and we need to
Yeah.
find some solutions. And some of the potential solutions I'm gonna lay out right now are one, like what happened in the Motel 6, what's going over there. I want to know why there aren't more potential uh, things, hotels there are to at least temporarily hold people, at least during COVID now, and just wait until they make more interim housing, right, John? There
Yeah.
should definitely, I feel like the Motel 6 is a great idea that should be utilized more.
I also think they should make more attempt to utilize other buildings that might be around sitting empty, whether they're offices or how about all the places that are like closed schools, closed churches, on and on and on, all sorts of and government offices not being open, and then all this,
Yeah.
usable space sitting there empty. Oh,
Yeah.
what a big
Especially,
waste.
especially the hotels, because
Yeah,
a
because
lot
they're
of people are
set
not
up.
traveling, and they're just there. Like foreign motels are just there and they're not being used, right, John? So
Yeah,
motels, I feel like is somewhere we can a good starting point.
right.
At least where people are being more open to using. Like the Motel 6, we saw it was good.
Yeah,
People living there. That lady who lived there, uh, I won't keep her name anonymous, but she was telling us how nice it was to have something that
yeah,
they're there. Like, I mean, they have their own place, they have their own little parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of. I know it's not the best, but it's especially during this climate. It's a solution, and we should
yeah.
definitely look more into that. And to move on to another one, like John said, open lots. Like,
Yeah, because there's still the vehicles.
yeah,
Could make more possibilities for people who are having to live in vehicles and not just have a big threat hanging over their head that somewhere along the line sweeps will get reinstated, and and all sorts of people are living in vehicles all over the city, and some are in vehicles that may not run and so forth. But then I don't want to see all of those people later get all of a sudden have sweeps getting reinstated, and then a whole bunch of them then being rounded up for maybe their vehicles aren't registered or the vehicles are not operational. So then if they start trying to say they had to be moved every so many days and all that, a lot of them would pretty soon lose their vehicles and be on the street. So let's not have an Armageddon of unhoused
yeah.
people.
If we keep leaving this unattended to, it's only gonna get worse and worse. We can't act blind to it. We can't, just put like a cover over it and say, what, it's good, everything's perfect. We can't live in this tunnel vision,
Yeah,
this imaginary world where everything's perfect. It's not.
yeah,
We need to fix these situations because it's only gonna get worse. Especially because
yeah,
the way the pandemic is raging right now, and all these more and more businesses are shutting down. They're not opening. No businesses are opening. They're shutting down. Those restaurants and I mean all sorts of businesses are just tanking. And without these
yeah,
potential solutions, because more people will be in the house, not less people will be in the house. There are less
yeah.
jobs, not more jobs.
So
Um,
the whole infrastructure of our cities should be set up to accommodate unhoused people and struggling people to
yeah,
have the amenities they need to survive. Right
exactly.
now, there's a whole lots of areas of the city have hardly any outreach at all, like the whole south end of San Jose. There's only very good outreach, mostly in
Yeah,
downtown,
there's no real solutions in the whole Santa Clara County. Basically, there's no
Yeah,
really good unhoused solutions right now. And although they keep talking and talking and talking about all these potential solutions, there's barely any none. We're not seeing any of these ideas come to light. It's
yeah,
just they're just putting these ideas out there, and they're not really being used, or they're afterthoughts.
yeah,
They're putting all this other funding and stuff, and they're saying all this stuff, but nothing's really being done. We're going looking for these
yeah.
solutions, and we went to all these different places and we're not seeing anything. I could bring up what we brought up before when we went to Felipe.
Yeah,
a lot of people are being swept over
they're
there.
threatening to sweep those
And
people.
those poor people, they think they're going to the inner housings, and it's
Yeah,
just
that got
messed up.
built around the corner, but we don't think that's really
Yeah,
the case.
so we need to find these solutions. Like another one is, sorry for going a little bit off topic, but the other one of the solutions we looked into was, can you talk a little about the casino?
Okay, well, there's a big building down on Saratoga Road or Saratoga Avenue in it's either San Jose or just borderline Santa Clara, but anyway, it's on Saratoga Road, just past where Kylie branches off. So it's a great big huge building that was called Garden City Casino, and then also on the same property is a gigantic building, Harry's Hofbrau building. So we think, why not? If some coalition of whatever interest outfits that are supposed to be utilizing all this other money that's sort of in this COVID slush fund from HUD and there's other income sources from the state, some county at the county level and city level. How about some time, a coalition forms that's not just made up of a bunch of city officials and county officials, and with no input from the unhoused community and the unhoused advocates. So need to not just have everything being planned by a bunch of well-heeled, successful city government people and nonprofit people as well who are at the same vested interests. We need to get more people come from the grassroots community, contact these agencies in the city and county and state, and let's try to lobby for some better use of all this funding, or maybe that's not even being used oftentimes. Like right now, we understand this housing department, there's a whole bunch of money they're applying for now that's more in this kind of umbrella of money, but then they don't get to actually use it till July. So that's kind of a big hole in that plan. Get a whole bunch of funding, but you have to wait 5-6 months to use it. Let's see what can be done more now on the grassroots level.
So that's so far we have right now for potential solutions me and John came up with, and I know it's not much, but at least for this current circumstance, current pandemic, it should help. And some things we can start off with, because you can't just, the saying that Rome was not built in one day. And with these stepping stones, hopefully it can build a foundation for the unhoused community and can build better things for the future. So, without further ado, also before we part, I want to bring up some great things John has been doing recently in the community. He's been going out there giving food to the unhoused community. John, if you want to talk a little more about that, that would be great. I bet the listeners want to hear about that story.
Okay. Yeah, well, I go out sometime with a group called Urge, locally in San Jose. And so,
But how do you get into Urge? For listeners that want to help out too.
I guess people could just, they could send a message here. They could inquire, Grace, basically just leave a message or something for us. Some of us could figure out a way to pass a message on if someone was.
Yeah, if you want to join the Twitter page, you can message me on Twitter or Facebook, the SOS NorCal, and I can reach out to John and you can share information and you can go out there and help the community and give them food and water and supplies. But go on, sorry.
But also the COVID hygiene supplies, masks, and all that, we're prevalently giving those out because.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you can continue.
Gotta keep on getting people to realize how important it is to wear the masks, use better sanitation, use the sanitizer really get consistent about that, because helps, not let this start to penetrating into the camps anymore than we hear. It is happening more now. Yeah, so then, seeing how so many people are living in a pretty sketchy way, but you gotta hand it to them for all their diligence, but it's also, you can see how vulnerable they are. Like here and there, we've seen evidence of.
Sorry, John. What areas are you going to delivering this with?
Well, see, we're trying to go like a lot more in the south end of the city, and a lot of the outlying areas, because it seems like the other outreach groups mostly only go, and city groups mostly only go around kind of more downtown San Jose, and maybe over to Spring and Heading, but they don't really go out to very many other of these outlying areas. So a lot of the people we talk to when we go to the outlying areas say we're the only group that ever does come around with any resources for them. So that's kind of a big hole in this. And then they only have a shelter in downtown also. Don't have any shelters at all. It used to be that at least have some in some library buildings and other city or county buildings that would have open up as shelters, but this year they're being all tight about not doing that.
So they're making it harder and harder for you guys to do this. That's messed up.
Not having shelters throughout the community, distributed throughout different parts of the city, seems like a big mistake.
So that's all we have time for today. And like I always say, powers into people. Go up to our leaders in the community, our city council, and urge them. We have the resources, they have the money. There's funding, but they're just not using it. So like I say, please, the powers in us. We have to go find the solutions if we want any change. And without further ado, everybody have a great rest of your day, rest of the week, and bye-bye.
All right.